I first noticed the silhouette a week after I moved in, just after dusk when the streetlights clicked on and the world softened into half shadows. From my living room window, I saw her, my own form, slender and still, pacing in perfect sync across the empty expanse of my neighbor's lawn. The house had stood vacant for years, its windows boarded, its gardens overgrown, and every evening I watched the black shape drift behind those makeshift shutters as if someone had slipped inside and taken up residence in my reflection. At first I chalked it up to fatigue or a trick of light, but night after night, the shadow repeated my every stretch, my every hesitant step toward the window, until I realized it wasn't mimicking me. It was learning me. My goal became clear and urgent. I had to uncover who or what was inhabiting that silent, shuttered shell before it learned enough to step through and claim my life. The stakes were terrifyingly concrete. If I failed, I'd awaken one morning to find myself a stranger in my own skin, trapped inside a silent house I could no longer escape. I set about documenting the phenomenon, rigging my phone to record any movement beyond my pain, and charting the silhouette's pattern against the moon's shifting curve. On the fourth night, I caught more than a shadow, a pale glint of eyes where none should be, lingering at the edge of the window like a promise. When I pressed my face to the glass, it paused, head tilted, fingers curled around a board's raw edge, and I heard the faintest rustle of peeling paint, as though it was breathing. In that moment, I realized there was no turning back. The next dusk would bring either my salvation or my erasure, and I would be waiting at the window, ready to confront the echo that wanted to become me. I spent the next afternoon sifting through the grainy footage on my phone, pausing at every flicker where the silhouette's outline wavered like heat over pavement. It moved methodically, stepping into view only when I traced the edge of my body's reflection, then pausing to tilt its head as if studying me. My goal sharpened. I needed to learn what tethered it to me before dusk reclaimed my windows. As evening fell, I set out into the overgrown lawn myself, carrying only a flashlight and my recorder, heart pounding with every step through the tangled grass. The boarded windows loomed like closed eyes watching, and when I pressed my palm against the nearest shutter, I felt a vibration, like a pulse, from the other side. I circled the house, inspecting each board, and found one with fresh nail holes, as though someone beyond had tried to hold it shut. Kneeling in the dying light, I scraped away peeling paint to reveal a fragment of a photograph wedged in the frame. A family portrait, faces erased to feature a single figure standing behind a window. The posture was unmistakably mine. My breath hitched, and I realized the entity had left me a message. It was borrowing my shape to step through the glass. I sprinted back inside to fortify every latch and nail down my windows. But even as I worked, I felt its presence creeping closer, the temperature dropping in ragged waves. That night, I dreamed of stepping outside and finding my own body inside the darkened living room, its silhouette pressed to the glass, silent and mocking. I awoke to the sound of my window latch clicking softly downstairs. I crept to the banister, heart hammering, and looked down. The silhouette slid into view, framed in the pale glow of the streetlight, fingertips hovering over the glass as though poised to enter. I knew then there was no turning back. I would have to confront whatever echoed my reflection or be consumed by it. The next dusk would decide whether I reclaimed my life or vanished behind that glass forever. I spent the next morning poring over town records and old newspapers at the public library, desperate for anything that could explain the silhouette's origin. I found a 1928 article about Mary Holloway, the last resident of the boarded house, who claimed her reflection tried to step out of mirrors and windows before vanishing one night, just as my silhouette had first appeared. My pulse quickened when I saw a grainy photograph of Mary in her parlor, and behind her, a second figure pressed against the glass like an accusation. That evening, I returned home with a battered copy of the article and stood before my window, holding it up next to the silhouette's form pacing the lawn. The figure froze as if reading over my shoulder, then tilted its head toward the photograph, mimicking Mary's pose exactly. I realized the entity wasn't just echoing me, it was replaying Mary's last moments, and learning me was its way back into life. As darkness fell, I taped the article over every pane of glass in my living room and waited, heart hammering, for the shape to react. When the first dent appeared in the paper, tiny impressions that spelled out "help me," I understood there was no halfway retreat. I had to enter the hollow house at dusk, face whatever lived in its shadows, and end Mary's echo before it consumed us both, or risk becoming a forgotten shadow myself. As the sky dimmed into bruised purples and the air cooled with evening's breath, I stood on the cracked porch of the abandoned house, keys in trembling hand. The front door sagged on rusted hinges, its paint flaked away like skin, and I pressed the battered article against the frame one last time, its headline whispering of Mary's disappearance. My goal had sharpened into a single imperative: find Mary's truth and release her echo before it claimed me. With a slow exhale, I unlatched the door and slipped inside, flashlights slicing through the gloom as dust motes danced like tiny specters. The parlor sprawled before me, its wallpaper yellowed and torn, and the furniture draped in ghostly sheets that sagged as if weighed by unseen bodies. I lifted a corner of fabric from a chaise and found a tarnished music box nestled beneath, its key turned but silent. I wound it anyway, and the first trembling notes of a lullaby filled the air, warping into a darker chord that made my pulse thud in my ears. The silhouette flickered at the window behind me. More defined now, Mary's form, reaching toward the glass with slender, pleading fingers. I edged around the chaise to a tall mirror propped against the far wall, its frame carved with ivy motifs that echoed the overgrown vines outside. In its reflection, I saw not my own face but Mary's haunted eyes staring back, tears pooling as she mouthed a single word: free. My heart seized as the room's temperature dropped, and my breath formed a thin mist in front of the mirror. Beneath her image, carved into the wood, were words I hadn't noticed until now. Within the hearth, truth lies buried. I lifted my flashlight to the fireplace, its bricks jagged and cold, and pressed my palm against the mortar. Beneath my fingers, a hollow sound beckoned, and I pried away a loose brick to reveal a hidden alcove. Inside lay a leather-bound journal stained with age and damp, its lock broken and pages fanning open. As I withdrew it, the lullaby stuttered and cut off, leaving only suffocating silence. The silhouette advanced to the window, pressing its face and palm against the glass so close I could see every hollow line etched in its skin. In that moment, I felt the walls themselves lean in, as though urging me onward. I opened the journal to the first entry, Mary's looping script revealing a pact she made with something beyond the glass to escape her own reflection, binding herself here in exchange for freedom from a self she could not forgive. My jaw clenched as I realized the echo I'd been battling was born of Mary's own despair, and that undoing her binding might unleash something far older and hungrier. The floorboards groaned beneath me, and the journal slipped from my hands, pages fluttering to a final note. To end the mirror's curse, the last candle must burn until dawn. Behind me, somewhere in the house's unlit corridors, a match struck. I knew then that stepping back was impossible. To save Mary's soul and my own, I had to carry that candle through the darkness until the first light of morning, or be consumed by the shadows I sought to banish. I lifted the slender taper from the hearth's alcove, its wax cool and heavy in my palm, and struck the match that flared in the gloom. The flame spatters of light across peeling wallpaper as I carried the candle down the narrow hallway, each step stirring motes of dust that drifted like restless spirits. My recorder clicked on in my coat pocket, capturing every creak and sigh of the house as I passed rooms where shadowy shapes pooled beneath curtained windows. I remembered Mary's final instruction: burn the candle until dawn to shatter the mirror's binding. The air grew colder, and the candle's flicker bent toward a distant doorway where I sensed movement, an echo of Mary's reluctant hope. I rounded the corner into the parlor, where the mirror stood sentinel, its glass webbed with cracks. The silhouette hovered just beyond, dark as spilled ink, limbs poised to step through. I raised the candle, and it sputtered, its wick bowing as though swallowing the last of its strength. The shadow mirrored my motion, reaching to snuff the light. I lunged forward and shielded the flame with my hand, and it burned brighter for a moment, revealing Mary's face in the fractured glass, eyes pleading for release. I set the candle on the hearth, then smashed the journal's spine against the stone to free its final secret, scattering brittle pages like fallen leaves around the mirror's base. The wind rose in a low howl, rattling window panes and stirring the sheets that draped the room. I plunged a page into the candle's flame. Mary's confession scorched away in a curl of embers, and I heard a long, keening sigh echo behind me. The silhouette recoiled as if stabbed by light, then lunged at the hearth, its form blurring at the edges. I seized the candle, resolution hardening in my chest, but when I turned, the front door slammed shut with a deafening crack. The corridor beyond dissolved into darkness, and I realized I couldn't escape the circle of shadows now closing in. Dawn still hours away, the candle's flame flickered on the brink of guttering out, and I understood with a thrill of terror that I had crossed the point of no return. To see the first light or become the next silhouette trapped beyond the glass, I had to stand, alone, in the heart of the house's darkness and let the candle burn itself to ashes. The wax guttered to a molten pool at my feet as the candle's flame bobbed against the dark like a lone heartbeat. I planted my feet on the warped floorboards and stared into the cracked mirror, where the silhouette quivered just beyond the glass, its hollow eyes fixed on me with an ancient longing. As the flame dipped low, I whispered Mary's name one last time, its breathy syllables vibrating through the hearth's stones. The shadows recoiled, writhing back into corners as though in pain, and the house groaned as the sunrise bled through a sliver of broken shutter. In that moment, the mirror's surface rippled like water, shattering across the reflection of my face to reveal something older, sorrowful, and impossibly familiar. I stumbled backward when the glass fractured outward, and a figure stepped through. Not Mary, but me, my reflection, whole and unscarred, pressing a hand where the cracks had run. It looked at me with tears I didn't remember shedding and whispered, "Thank you," before turning away and walking toward the front door. Behind it, the glass welded itself back into a perfect pane, erasing every crack and distorting the vaporous candlelight into brilliance. The real me, scarred by fear and fatigue, realized too late that the bargain had been twisted. I had burned away Mary's echo, but in doing so I had become her replacement, bound to inhabit the shell of her shadow until another voice called my name. Beyond the parlor, the front door creaked open on its own, revealing the overgrown lawn bathed in dawn's cool light. My reflection paused at the threshold, then slipped silently across the grass toward my house while I, the new silhouette, reached for the handle behind me. As I stepped into the muted glow of morning, I felt the walls lean in for their next story. If you felt the chill of reflected fears, Please like this tale of anxious calm and subscribe to Whisper Tales for your next nightly escape.